We have the rand trading around 7.33 at the moment. Yesterday getting down to around 7.24, 7.25. So a bit of weakness creeping back into the currency. Still holding quite strong though.
Well, that's quite right. The rand is pretty strong, and we ascribe it to an improvement or further improvement in risk appetite, really globally. Yesterday it was driven by the fact that you had pretty favourable manufacturing figures coming out of both the US and the euro area, slightly surprising to the upside. And then you also had favourable earnings or corporate earnings from European banks. So risk appetite improved as a result, and the rand tested that 7.25 level against the dollar. We expect this to be maintained, this improved environment or risk environment, but we do see some potential weakness. However, it could be restricted to 7.35 handle against the dollar.
What do you think would drive that potential weakness in the currency?
Well, at this stage, we're talking about relative weakness in the sense from 7.25 and 7.35. So it's a pretty narrow trading range for the rand. I think the market is already looking at what's going to happen on Friday with US employment data and non-farm payrolls coming out. The consensus is for a decline in non-farm payrolls of 60,000, which is about half of the decline we've seen in June. So a negative or a more negative number could potentially see a reversal of risk appetite and could potentially see the rand lose a bit more value. But at this stage, it seems like the US dollar is under significant pressure, and as a result, the cross against the dollar is definitely in our favour.
Of course, yeah, because we have the euro trading about 131.5 against the dollar, so it's crossed above that 131 threshold that it has been battling to cross. But just looking at the ISM numbers and the PMI numbers, because most of them came in slightly weaker than they had been in the previous month, so down from June to July in the United States, still in expansion mode though.
Well, that's quite right. They're above the 50 level. In other words, they're pointing to expansion, as you pointed out. And B, it was slightly above expectations. And so it is a relative measure. But the fact of the matter is it's slowing, but less than expected. And these economies are still growing, or the manufacturing sectors of these economies are still growing. If you look at the details of the US report specifically, there are some flags in the sense that you have new sales orders declining and production declining. And historically, we've seen that a decline in new sales orders could essentially cap potential gains in the equity market or US equity market. So there's definitely some risk highlighted in the report. Moving back on the domestic front, we've seen that PMI also increased slightly, but unfortunately still remains below that 50 threshold level at 49.5 index points. And again, the details are less encouraging maybe than the headline improvement, whereas your new sales orders also declined and actually fell below that 50 threshold level. So it suggests that manufacturing, even in South Africa, is starting the third quarter at not the best mode.
Well, just looking at some of the data we're getting up ahead of that jobs data on Friday, we have vehicle sales out here. Today we have PPI out of Europe, and we also have pending home sales in the United States. What's your expectations on those?
Well, vehicle sales we expect to ease slightly from what we've seen in the previous couple of months, and it's probably a correction after the flurry of sales leading up to the World Cup and the car rental purchases being front-loaded because of this event. And then you have pending, or rather income and spending in the US, which will be probably important for the market. Expectations are for a gradual increase or a slight increase in both spending and income, but the concern is still that US employment the employment scenario remains weak, and as long as this persists, we won't have significant increase in consumption, we won't have significant increases in income, and the US economy will remain under some pressure.
Adriaan, just quickly, there's talk in the newspaper today that the ANC is mulling a Tobin tax, a tax on portfolio flows into South Africa, and that's as part of a discussion document that's going to be taken to the National General Council meeting at the end of next month. Your view on this, has it been effective in Brazil? Could this be something that could help curb some of the rand strength?
Well, it's definitely something you can use. The effectiveness thereof is a bit uncertain. We've seen it applied or used in Brazil, and the currency still strengthened. And I think just a significant glut of liquidity globally, you probably have to do quite a bit to lean against currency strength. It's unlikely that we'll see a reversal of the currency or that it will have a significant effect, but any marginal gains would be welcomed. And on that front, you could say, well, there might be merit in looking at measures like that.